And we're live. Hey, we're live today. 5 authors, 5 road. And today we have Mike Shoulders. Where are you, Mike?
Clarksville, Tennessee, home of Wilma Rudolph. 3 gold medals in the 60 Olympics.
Woohoo! And she had polio. Where are you, Sneed Pollard?
I am in beautiful Missoula, Montana.
Missoula.
How about Mike Artell? Where are you?
Covington, Louisiana, near New Orleans. That's sort of.
Swinburne, where are you?
I'm in southern Vermont, a little town called South Londonderry. Londonderry is the home of snowboarding. I don't know if everybody knew that, but we invented snowboarding right here in my town.
So
wow,
did you guys
that?
invent the word goofy for left-handed? Did you invent the word goofy? In snowboarding, if you're left-handed, they call you goofy.
That's correct. No, I didn't invent that.
Was that invented in your town, being goofy?
Probably.
You know, I've been called that, and I've never even been on a snowboard.
By the way, I'm Jerry Pallotta. I'm in Boston, Massachusetts today. So there you go. Actually, I'm in South Boston, right near downtown. I used to live in the suburbs, but I'm done with the suburbs. I like the city. So you ready? This would be our first question of the day. Okay? So just so there's new people watching us and they don't know who you guys are. So Mike Shoulders, tell us the very first book you got published.
My very first book was called V is for Volunteer, a Tennessee Alphabet. It's the part of the Sleeping Bear Press State series. It goes from the Appalachian Mountain all the way to the Zebra Swallowtail. First book published in 2001.
Was he allowed to say that, you guys? What year it was published? Was that allowed?
Yeah,
that's legal.
Sure.
All right, Sneed, you go next.
My very first published book was a book called Sea Snakes, published by Boyd's Mills Press.
Yay!
In 1993. And obviously, Boyd's Mills didn't think much of me because it was the only book I ever had published with them. So, but
no, they said we couldn't do any better than this. I'm just going to wrap it up.
He moved on to bigger and better things.
Every book he's written is better than the next one. Yeah.
All right, Steve Swinburne, you're next.
This is my first book I ever got published. It was called Swallows in the Birdhouse, or you might say Swallows in the Boyd House. And it was illustrated by Robin Brickman. And Sneed has a relationship with Robin because he did a book with not a relationship.
Steve, do you want to clarify that a little bit?
Robin illustrated one of his books, but this came out with Boyd's Mills Press in 1996.
Wow.
Wow. That's really cool. I didn't know that. Okay, Mike Artell.
Okay, I don't have the book with me, but it was my very first book.
Was it 1887?
It was, yeah. In fact, George Washington said, "This will never sell. This will never sell." But and he was right.
Hey, Mike, you're old.
The name of the book was When I Say, or in Spanish, Cuando Digo. Okay, which and it was a concept book. So it's movement. So you know when we talk, especially Jerry and I are Italians, and Mike Italians, we use our hands a lot. So the book went like this: when I say yes, my head goes. When I say no, my head goes like this. When I say I don't know, my shoulder, yo no sé. Cuando digo, yo no sé. Yeah, right. So and then it ended up with and when I say good night, my eyes go like that.
Buenas noches.
Yeah. So that was my very first book, and it was part of a little series that they did. And another one was a concept book on squares and circles and triangles. That was the first one. It was fun.
Tell me again the name of the first book.
When I Say, it was done by an educational publisher called DLM, Developmental Learning Materials, who ended up getting bought out by Macmillan, and they got bought out by somebody else. You know, there's only one publisher in the world, and everybody works for them. So,
By the way, you guys, a shout out to Trinity Christian Academy in Missouri who joined us live today.
Yay! I know those
Christian
guys. I know those
Academy.
guys.
Trinity Christian Academy.
Way to
And,
go,
Thank you for
Miss
joining us.
Reedy. Thank you, Miss Nancy.
By the way, there's a Trinity Catholic Academy in Brockton, Massachusetts. Why don't you kids
that right?
write to the kids in Brockton, Massachusetts, Trinity
Wow.
Catholic Academy?
Huh.
So how do you like
Brockton.
that?
They've got mail in Brockton.
I don't have my book yet. My book's on the way here. But my first book I wrote was called The Ocean Alphabet Book. I grew up on the ocean, and I was reading alphabet books to my kids. And in my head, I said, hey, I could do this. So I started writing alphabet books. I looked around the country. No one else was writing nonfiction alphabet books at the time. So I tried to write as many as I could. I wanted to beat Sneed and Swinny and Mikey from writing them. So I did as many as I could as fast as I could. So,
Hey, well,
So-
that is a total lie there, Jerry, because I have to mention that for some reason.
what's that?
By the way, since your book is no longer on the way, let me do. Here it is, right here. Do you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yep, there it is right there. Ocean
The
Alphabet.
Ocean Alphabet book.
Yeah.
Look at that.
There you go.
So,
Here's my very,
and
first book.
but I have a story, Jerry, because you weren't trying to be us, we were trying to be you. And the reason I know that is because I was at a conference earlier on walking around, and I came to the Charlesbridge booth and I saw your alphabet books, and I said, these are really cool. I want to write for these guys. And so there you go. You inspired a lot of people.
Well,
You did, Jerry.
you guys inspired me. All right, here's your next question. Ready? Starting with Mike Shoulders. Michael, tell us your first school visit. That's not really fair for you because you were in school as a teacher. But what was your first school visit as an author?
Well, when I actually sold and published my first book, I was an elementary supervisor. I wasn't a teacher then. So I went to all the schools in Clarksville, or a lot of the elementary schools. My first school visit, I'm proud to say, was on Fort Campbell, Kentucky. There was a principal there that was the PR person for Dodea schools in Europe. Brilliant man, brilliant man. Hal Haggard, I say his name. And so he and I played tennis. And when my book came out, I went and I spoke on Fort Campbell at a new school, NEW, because they named their schools after soldiers. And the name had not been solidified or finalized by the Department of Defense. So I went to the new school, now Lucas Elementary at Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Mike?
And Jerry, I will say this. I brought Jerry to my school district a couple of times before I even had a book, even before I knew I was going to really be an author. And so I learned from the best on the importance of connecting with kids, using humor in your presentation to keep their interest. So my first school was New Elementary, later known as Lucas at Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Very good.
Wow.
All right, Sneed.
Pander.
My
What was
first,
your first school?
my
It's a
first,
book about panders? You got a book about panders?
my first
Mike, I didn't
school,
know you
I
played
actually
tennis.
don't know the name of it. It was a little school way up in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Charlesbridge lined it up for me. And I spent the night before with some lovely teacher families. And the school visit itself, I think, was not my finest moment. I agreed to do, I think, 7 talks, and I had no idea that you really couldn't do 7 good talks in a day. And I couldn't speak at the end of the day, and I didn't have a microphone. And but I learned, it was a very steep learning curve. And, I quickly figured out what I was doing after that.
Can I say something very quickly about that? I always feel that it comes off maybe sounding a little bit pompous to say I can only speak 3 times or 4 times a day. But Sneed, you're correct. We don't speak for a living. We do those sporadically, except for Jerry. He's in a school almost every day. But most of us do not speak all day long. And when we do that, Sneed, we are actually speaking more than teachers speak because they do have some downtime. And I always wonder, do I say, you know, I can't do that for fear that it's going to sound pompous and arrogant, but you can't speak that long. It just hurts the voice.
No,
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I can say that, Mike, because I have gray hair, but you don't have gray hair, so you can't say I can't do 5, 6, 7 talks. You know,
that's a really good point, Mike. I
I
think.
could say, look, I can't do it. Hey, someone came in and they said,
Oh,
do you guys have a secret number of books that you'd like to get published? And
A
I don't
secret
know,
number?
a secret number?
We just
Personal
started publishing.
number
She
in the
can
back
she
of
can
your
tell
mind.
she can tell that we go for quantity, not quality, right?
Jane
Um,
Yolen has 380 books. I'm trying to beat her.
That's right.
Okay, here we go. Next up
Away
is
we go.
Steve Swinburne, your first school. By the
First
way,
school as well.
by the way, Steve, you know you're a wicked ham. You know it. So were you scared the very first school? Were you scared?
Oh,
Because I was
absolutely.
petrified. I was
I think
petrified.
I think if you don't have nerves, then you're doing something wrong. I was nervous. Like Sneed, I did 7 sessions, I think for $150. It was called the East Side School in Rutland, Vermont. And I spent the first, as all the teachers filed into the gymnasium, and it had a whole group of about 300 third graders. I ended up talking for about 15 minutes to the kids right down in the front. And there was a lot of snickering. And finally, a teacher came up to me and said, "Are you going to start?" I just had no concept of how to control the crowd, what to do. And you do learn, and school visits are wonderful because you do connect with your audience, but eventually you learn humor, you learn pacing, you learn how to have them participating in your talk and all of those good things. And now we all do it many, many times a year, and we love it. And it's part of our career.
Well, I learned timing from Carmen Didi. You know, but I got to tell you
That's
guys
the
a
best.
story.
She's the best. She's the best.
I was in a
Great
school
presenter.
in Richmond, Virginia, and the principal comes up to me before the talk and he says, "If these kids misbehave, it's your fault." And he said, "You have to learn." I didn't speak yet. He goes, "You must learn how to control a crowd." So
Really?
I'm telling you right now, if they misbehave, it's your fault. And when he left, I
Wow.
thought he was the biggest jerk I ever met in my life. But you know what? At the end of the day, I thought, you know what? That guy's really right. I got to learn how to
Mhm.
control the crowd.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
from then on, I was like really paying attention of how to keep kids
Yeah.
paying attention. Ryan, it
Well,
says,
it was harder back then, Jerry. Now they have this great tool. It's called a taser. Have you guys heard of that? And I find that is great with crowd control.
I
Wow.
think that it's funny you say that because when you pull out a tiger skull in front of an audience, they usually calm right down. You know, I don't bring many skulls with me anymore, but for years I brought skulls with me.
Yeah. You don't bring skulls anymore, Jerry?
Not really, no.
Really? Wow. All right.
Yeah, but I have like 250 slides in my show. It's like really fast. You
Yeah.
know, it's like
Yeah.
boom, boom, boom. Okay, Mike Artell, you're next. Oh, did you already
Okay,
go? I forget.
No, I didn't. It was one of those memorable performances. Huh? I don't remember the actual first school visit, but I tell you the first one I remember, and it's kind of serious. I spoke to a school system to a school where it was kind of poverty stricken. It was a real poor neighborhood, and the school didn't have much money, and the kids were kind of poor. And they were great kids. They were really good listeners, but I thought I did a pretty good job, and I got through, and the principal said, would you come to my office with me for a minute, please, before you leave? And I
Uh-oh.
said, sure. So it wasn't unusual for me to go to the principal's office. All right. I was used to that. So anyway, so I went in and she closed the door and she said, her first words were, "You don't understand." And I said, "I beg your pardon?" And she said, "Some of these kids, in fact, most of these kids don't even have a book in the house." And she said, "Some of the kids, in fact, most of these kids have never had a real conversation with an adult. It's just the adult telling them, do this, do that, shut up, get out of here." Just really crude and mean and insensitive kind of conversation. And she said, "You're talking to them like they grew up with happy families and good environments, and a lot of them didn't." And she said, "You need to think about that when you do your presentations." And boy, it was kind of like somebody throwing a pie in my face, you know. It made me think, wow, you know, I need to be sure that when I do my presentations, I'm talking to all the kids. And that you know, you still want to encourage the kids to try to achieve at a high level. You know, you can't have that soft expectations, as Martin Luther King said. You know, you have to have high expectations, but you have to understand that that's got to be brought along kind of in steps. And so that was the most memorable thing for me, and that was one of the first I ever did.
If I can throw something out here, because Jerry gets it, I've seen his presentations multiple times with kids. I tell principals and teachers a lot that I do what's called edutainment. Now, I don't think you need to entertain the kids for the 45 minutes to an hour, but you need to educate them, but you need to throw in and be entertaining to keep their attention. And I've not seen the other three of you, but I've seen Jerry do it 100 times. Kids love him because he's funny, he gets it. And as an administrator, a school administrator, that really excited me to see him work with kids in my district.
Yeah, well, you know, the whole world is ADD now. The whole world. We've been trained, starting with Sesame Street. If you think about it, Sesame Street was, you know, boom, 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 image, 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 sound, picture, change the image. You know, if you want a nice little experiment, kids, watch a commercial on TV and count the number of times the image changes. You'll be shocked. In a 30-second ad, you'll see 30 or 40 images. And so then it's hard to sit in a classroom and the image doesn't change. It's just the teacher, you know, so it's hard to do that. But that's because they've trained our brains to become dissatisfied very quickly. So
by the way, guys, I was invited to go to a seafood festival in Boston and sell my book, my ocean book. And I thought, wow, this is great. So I'm at a seafood festival. I have one book and I'm selling it. And a teacher came up to me and said, "Will you visit my class?" And I go, "Sure. What do I know?" "Sure, I'll go." So that was my very first visit. I drove all the way out to Southborough, Massachusetts. I talked to the class about my book. I remember I got reprimanded because some kid said, "Can I see that book?" And I threw it to him. And I thought, whoa. Whoa.
Uh-oh.
I forgot I wasn't in where I grew up, you know?
Yeah, right. With your brothers and sisters, right?
Yeah, with my 4 brothers, you know? So, you know what? The teacher wrote me a check for $25. I wasn't expecting any money or anything. I was like, wow. Yeah. But she sat me down and said, "Did you know you can visit schools? We love authors to visit schools." I had never heard of it. I'll be honest with you. I had never heard of it.
Yeah, it's like, you mean I can get paid? I can get paid for doing stuff I used to get punished for? You know, this is amazing. You know?
I know, it's great.
In fact,
all right, I have, go ahead.
Should I tell a secret here for teachers and librarians out there? You know, there's a lot of misconceptions about how much money we make from our books. And I'm guessing it's true of all of us that we wouldn't have been able to make a living without doing visits over the years.
Yeah. In bursts, you'll get a big peak from book sales, and then the book starts. You know, books have very short lives, most of them. You know, so we.
I spoke this week with a literacy coach in West Columbia, Lisa Ragsdale, She knows how to do this. She'll have 3 authors there at one time. And she told me, she said, my students at my school need to see that these are real people. These books are not written by dead people from long ago, and that you can grow up and do this. You can become this. So when I was there earlier this school year, there were 3 writers that one illustrator, Chris Soonpeat, was there. So she'll have like 3 at a time at their literacy festival. So she gets it. You know, she knows that makes a strong connection for her students in West Columbia. She's fantastic.
You know, Mike, since you said that, I've often made the analogy, doing what we do is a lot like being a professional musician, because professional musicians can go into the studio and create a recording, and it's fantastic. And you can put it out on iTunes or CD Baby or whatever, Spotify or whatever. But you know what? The audience want to see you. So they have to go on tour. Musicians have to go on tour. And it's because the audience wants that face-to-face connection. They want to shake your hand, or they want you to sign something for them, want to take a picture with you. They just want that real face-to-face connection. So it's a lot like being a musician, I think, a touring musician.
All right, you ready for the next one?
Yeah.
I was going to let you guys pick the next theme, but I'm going to do one goofy one. Is that okay? I was going to tell a funny story. Because you told about seeing Mike Artell told a story about meeting kids that didn't have books at home and, weren't used to books and all that. So I was up in northern Maine, and I was at a school, and kids were buying books, but this one kid couldn't buy a book. So he comes up to me and he goes, "I want a book." And I go, "What do you got?" But I was being goofy. What do you got? I was being goofy because I was going to give him a book anyways, right?
Yeah.
He goes, "I got a beaver skull." So I go, "Really? You got a beaver skull?" He goes, "Yeah, I'll give you a beaver skull if you give me a book."
Wow,
right?
a good trade.
So I thought he was kidding, but he brought me, like, later that day. His dad came by. His dad was a trapper, and he brought me the beaver skull. He brought me the beaver skull, with everything but the fur on it, the muscle, everything, the tongue, whatever.
Hey,
And
Dad, I need you to bring me a beaver skull.
It was in like a Wonder Bread bag, and he hands me.
Was there any fur or skin on it? Or was it complete? Any
no,
fur?
the muscle and the brain and everything were there. So I had to clean it,
Makes you wonder how you killed the beaver, doesn't it?
But it was fresh. It wasn't like smelly or anything.
So you had lunch too.
I wrapped it up. I threw it in my car, and of course I got home, and I go to boil it at home, and my wife goes, "You are not boiling that in this house."
That's where I draw the line. I draw the line.
What do we have for dinner tonight? Boiled beaver?
In Tennessee, a beaver head is worth 5 books, Jerry.
I gave the kid 3 books. I really did. 3.
I
thought you would. Come over for dinner? What are you having for dinner? You want to come over for dinner, guys?
Head of beaver.
So, Michael Shoulders, tell me, what did you trade for a book? You must have given a kid a free book.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure.
I'm going to tell you what, and I hope you guys agree with me. When you give a kid a free book, you're going to have a teacher come up to you and say, "How did you know to give that book to that kid?" That kid needed it. There's this divine, I don't care if you're religious or not, there's this divine intervention that tells you what kid needs a free book. I've never traded for any animal heads or pelts or anything.
Well, it's still early, Mike. It's still early. Yeah.
But that makes me.
It's early in your career, Mike. You can still
Jerry, it does make me flash back to how many times a teacher has said, "OMG, you could not have picked a better kid and deserving kid that needed that book." So that's all I've got to say.
I got another funny one for you guys. I don't know what you say to kids, but some kid will come up and he knows he's not supposed to get a book, but I could tell he's really hurt, and I give him a book. And he looks at me and goes, "What should I say?" When the kids ask me how I got the book, I say, "Tell them you got it at Walmart." Sometimes I say, "Tell them your grandmother bought it." Just say my grandmother.
Yeah.
But tomorrow you can tell them the truth when
You
I'm
don't need to
gone.
explain it.
I would tell them, I don't care what you say, just let me be out of the building when you tell them.
Yeah, you're right. Just say
That's
a friend of mine gave it to me. A friend of mine.
Hey,
gave it to me.
Sneed.
Yeah.
Sneed, you must have a funny story about like that.
Well, before I forget, I think it'd be a great theme for us to talk about some of the gifts we've gotten when we've been to schools before.
Yeah.
Because I've thought about that for years. Schools have been so kind in what they come up with and given just some amazing things. And so I thought that could be a really fun theme for one of our sessions sometime. But
that would be a really good one.
Yeah.
I've got a couple really good ones.
I could show you the black Madonna I have carved out of coal that I got in
Nice.
rural Pennsylvania in a coal mining town.
Wow. I got a Kachina doll. I got a Kachina doll from the Anasazi Indians. That's kind of like a little god, not a god, but a little, a spirit guy, a little,
You should have a museum.
I got a
gifts given to
Well,
authors.
you do, Jerry, behind you.
Yeah, here's a dream catcher I got at a school. I know that's like, cheating.
That's really cool.
Ourselves. Yes, it's very cool. But, books at schools, I've never bartered, but in my book, Sneed B colored the third's most fun book ever about lizards, I speculate on what a group of lizards should be called. And I put in the book that if kids write to me, that I'd like to hear from kids what they think a group of lizards should be called. And over the years, I've gotten some great ansers. And
there isn't a what do you call
collective word? A collective
noun
word?
for that?
Yeah.
No, I don't think there is really. Let's see, what does it say here?
Gang of lizards.
So kangaroos are a mob, of course, and all that. There's some, but I don't.
A crash of rhinoceros.
Yeah.
Are you serious, Jerry? Is that
Yeah,
true?
go look it up. A crash of rhinoceros.
A crash of rhinoceros? Wow.
In a raft of seals if they're in the ocean.
I knew that.
floating.
I knew
A tower of giraffes.
What?
A what?
A tower of giraffes.
Oh, I like that.
Oh my
I
God.
like that.
Wow.
Well, there's one term is a lounge of lizards, but I didn't like that. So I wanted kids to come up with something better, and they have, And so, and I like a scamper of lizards. I thought that would be a cool name, and then
a skitter.
I think this would be a good name. Yo, let's get out of here, lizard.
Right.
But whenever I get an answer, I almost always send them a book, even though I don't tell them I'm going to do that. I just
somebody read the chat questions. Somebody, I can't do it right now.
My first, I haven't read. It says Lynette Richaud says, for an inspiring author, this has been phenomenal. Well, thank you, Lynette. You're very kind.
Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, Lynette.
Yes.
Linda Edwards says it's been an amazing month of author shares. Welcome to live chat. And then let's see what else it says. Nancy Reedy says, my first years of teaching was in the area that students were getting up at 4 a.m. for their farming chores. Wow.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The shocking issue was parents wanted me to teach them to read. Books are exciting. Very good.
It's hard to teach tired children, though.
Yeah.
My wife grew up on a dairy farm. She grew up on a dairy farm, and in the late summer, early school they would take a break, and I guess it was like late August, early September, something like that. And so some of the kids could go help pick cotton and stuff.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Which grown-up authors do you like that inspire you? I put Roald Dahl and John McPhee. How about you guys?
Roald Dahl's a grown-up author?
Isn't he a grown-up author?
Isn't he a children's author, a young adult author?
He is, but it depends how you read him.
He was grown up when he wrote his books.
Nice catch, Steve.
Yeah, thanks.
I love Paul Theroux. Paul Theroux, he's the travel writer,
Yeah.
Oh,
but
yeah,
he
Paul
doesn't
Theroux's
he
great.
doesn't write like you know, go stay at this hotel or something like that. He
No.
travels and he journals the
Yeah.
history, the kind of people they are, what they eat, you know, all that sort of stuff. And when he travels, sometimes he never takes a plane. He just walks or rides a bike or gets in
Wow.
a taxi or something like that. I love his books.
Do
Like
any
the
of you
one
know
where
the
he-
name?
Go ahead.
Do any of you know the name Ruta Sepetys?
Mm-mm.
No.
But I had some of
really-
that on my arm. I had some of that on my arm one time.
No,
Like,
you didn't. You really need to look
He
up.
played
Ruta
left field.
Sepetys.
He played left field
He
for the Red
did.
Sox.
I ordered that the other day at a restaurant. It was delicious.
there
She
you
won
go.
the Carnegie Medal, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, one of her books was awarded the very first award from ALA. That was a book for adults that's used in schools. I think it was her book. It was either that or All the Light We Cannot See. But
Right.
Ruta
Oh,
Sepetys,
Great book.
look. Oh, great book. By the way, I spend a lot of my time reading stuff, you know, that will be in my area. This is
Yeah.
from Deborah Wiles. Does anybody know Deborah Wiles?
Yeah, it's a great book.
Yep. Her new book is called Kent State. Kent State.
Yes,
Ah,
she is fantastic. Just a shout out to her. But I tend to read stuff like that. But Ruta Sepetys.
Okay.
I read
very good.
I read nonfiction almost exclusively, and right now I'm doing some reading on Stoic philosophers, Seneca, letters of Seneca, so it's a fun thing. I get together once a month with 3 other guys, and we have a little philosophy group, and we just talk about it usually degrades real fast because we do it at breakfast, and then we end up talking about sports. But we try, and it's a fun thing to do. But I love to read Epictetus and Seneca and Marcus Aurelius and philosophers.
I love reading biographies too.
Yeah.
I could read.
Mhm.
I love reading biographies, and I love reading. I'm with you. Adventure nonfiction. I like. First guy to the South Pole. First guy to the North Pole. You know what I mean?
I used to.
Finding
I love
Murders, all
humor.
those books.
Ogden Nash. Ogden Nash poetry is. I love Ogden Nash.
This is a wonderful book. I don't know if you can see this, but I don't know if you guys are into Audible, but this
yeah.
is a
Mhm.
biography of Winston Churchill, and I'm reading a lot of WW2 literature right now because I want to write a book about the Blitz in London. When Hitler started bombing London in 1940, my mom
Were
was.
your parents
my
there?
mom was
Were your
10
parents there?
Yeah, my mom was 10 years old. My dad was 11. My uncle was 11. And they were all
Wow.
evacuated from London during the Blitz.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I want to write a nonfiction fiction story about her moving out of London 20 miles and going up on a hillside and watching this big red glow, knowing that London was being bombed and never knowing if her parents were alive or dead. And she stayed there
Wow.
at that evacuated house at that home for evacuated kids for about 4 years. So it was such a traumatic thing. And I think it's happening a lot around the world these days. So she's still alive, my mom. She's 91. And my goal was to try to get her back to London, but she had a stroke last year. And I wanted to go back to the place where she spent her 4 years of evacuation, but she just couldn't make it. But
yeah, that's a lot.
it's
You know, during this quarantine and staying at home and all that, and all the stores being closed, I say to myself, well, at least we're not being hit by V2 rockets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Somebody said, yeah, it's uncomfortable. It kind of, it's inconvenient. But don't forget, Anne Frank spent how many days in an attic, and without an iPad, I might add, and so, by the way, Steve,
Without Netflix?
Without Netflix, too. about 12 years ago, my wife and I went to London, and we went underground and saw where Winston Churchill and all of his advisors were staying.
Yeah, the war room.
When they were doing in the war room. Right. It was just really amazing. Really amazing stuff.
Well, I've totally lost track. Okay. By the way, someone said they love Edward Abbey, Sneed, I think, Bill Bryson. I've read Bill Bryson's book.
Yeah, he's
Bill
good.
Bryson's book about Australia is one of my favorite books I have ever read.
Me too.
Under the Sunburned Sky. That
Got a
book's
great one
unbelievable.
about England too.
Susan Casey, is she the one who wrote Devil's Teeth?
Yes. Yes.
I love that book, Devil's Teeth. I
Yes.
mentioned that yesterday with someone.
Oh,
Devil's
okay.
Teeth, where the great white sharks
Yeah.
go every summer.
Yep.
And
Gary, you told me about that and I read it. I loved it.
yeah, she also wrote a book called The Wave about giant waves.
That was very good too. That was very good.
They used to think the biggest wave could be 120 feet tall, but
Amazing.
then they found one 1,500 feet in Alaska that wiped out the top of this mountain.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Did you ever read The Wave, Sneed?
Yeah, I did. I really loved that book.
I love that book.
Great.
Yeah.
I have a recommendation. Boys in the Boat. Boys in the Boat.
That was a great book. Yeah.
Did you read that? That was a great book. Really enjoyed that. Yeah.
That was
About a rowing team from the West Coast. Washington, Oregon, I can't remember. And guys who were basically from a logging town and ended up taking on the world's greatest scullers. So I don't know.
Guys, Craig Schroeder might have just saved us. Craig Schroeder, who's been with us all along. I forget where he's from. He says, "Gentlemen, what has been your favorite book idea that no one wants to publish?" So,
good question.
what has been your favorite book idea that no one wants to publish?
Let me jump in if I could.
Oh, I know.
Can
one.
I
All right,
share
Swinny, you go first.
Who?
Swinny, you go first.
All right, I'm going to share my screen, okay? And this is, can you see something?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's my novel called Whiffin' Dirty George. I told you that I was born in London. My folks were born in London. And I got this idea about two little kids that try to save the queen from this mad guy named Basil who wants to take over England. And I'll never forget when the book first came out. It came out in 2010. I posted here a review I got from Betsy Bird, who writes for School Library Journal. And when I read this, I jumped up and down because she really got it. And she said at the end there, if weird is good, and it certainly can be, then it is fair to say that Whiffin' Dirty George are doggone great. This book came out with Boyd's Mills. They issued a second book. So I wrote a sequel to this. And I was going to do 2 or 3 more, like a series. But then Boyd's Mills changed all their editorial staff. And long story short, as we all know, books go out of print. So I'd love to bring this back. And because it was really a fun story about 2 kids tackling really interesting problems. And I think, Jerry, you read this, right?
Yep, the opening chapter, there's an underwear machine.
Yeah.
That when
That's
you turn
right.
on people's underwear.
I read it too. It's really a fun book.
Well, how could you put this down? The first line in the book, "Me trousers are falling down," cried Dirty George. "Mine too," said Whiff.
Well, see, that's a good thing. I just have to say something about that, Steve. We've all seen this where teachers or librarians want us to look at the writing that kids have done, or even that adults have done, and they'll ask us our opinions and all that. And what I always tell them is, let me see that first line, let me see that first paragraph, let me see the first page, because if it doesn't start out with something interesting, amazing, unbelievable, funny, scary, weird, if it just starts out, it was a beautiful night in the country and the moon was high in the sky, and it's like, oh, you're driving me nuts, it's so boring. All right, so you have to start it out in a way that's interesting, however you decide to do that. Yeah. But you have to make it interesting to the reader in some way, because your words have to create the same picture in their head that you have in your head.
I always tell kids when I visit schools, there are 3 things I'd love for them to do in their writing: strong verbs, and I always use that symbol, cool details, and hook the reader. Strong verbs, cool details, hook the reader. If they can just do those 3 things, there's so many other things they can do, but if they can do those 3 things and work on those 3 things in their in their writing. Young authors will really, their writing will come alive. And that's what we're trying to make them do, have their writing come alive.
So, Craig,
and
I
look,
have
a
a good,
title. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Jerry. Go ahead.
well, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. Just work
I
on
am
your
an
titles,
interrupter.
too.
My kids tell my friends he's an interrupter. He's an interrupter.
Interrupting cow, right?
Yeah. No, I'll tell you a book that I thought of that if I ever mention it, they'd say, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. I wanted to write a book of all the different gods, A through Z, like the snake god, Zeus. So I had a Z, Zeus.
Right.
Well, obviously, I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school 16 years. I'm an unapologetic Catholic, really. And I had 8 years of nuns, 8 years of Jesuit priests, okay? But I wanted to write a book like A for Allah, B for Buddha. You know, when you think of all the gods in the world, like the wind god and the war god, and you know what I'm saying? Some people think Michael Jordan was a god, Larry Bird was God. You know what I mean?
Roger Federer is a god.
No, the Beatles were gods. The Rolling Stones were the devil. The Rolling Stones were
that's
Satan.
right.
The Beatles were God. The
Satanic
Rolling Stones were
Majesty's
Satan.
request. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So there's a book that they wouldn't let me do. So Sneed, you must have one.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mentioned the lizard book earlier, and so I'm going to come back to this because I wrote this book. When I started my career, I wanted to write a funny science book. And so I wrote this book about lizards, and I love the humor in here. Like, I pull the chain of readers quite a bit. Like, I put, in a single sitting, a thorny devil has been known to chow down 2,500 ants without dipping sauce, you know?
Wow.
So there's stuff
Purist,
like that, you know? And at the recent World's Most Evolved Reptile Championships on Lizard Island, Australia, chameleons won trophies for the ability to change color to match their surroundings, et cetera, you know? So, and when I started sending this out, nobody got it. They're just like, what, science, humor? We don't know what to do with that, you know?
Yet we all do it. We all do it. All of us.
I've been told that your books have science and humor. It's very rare.
Yeah, it took me 10 years to sell this book.
Yeah.
Another 5 years or so to get it published. So it's a lesson in patience. So
I think science and humor are a great combination. I really do.
Yeah, there's so many ways you can go with it too.
Yeah.
I do a lot of
Mike
limericks and
Mike Shoulders, you're awfully quiet over there, buddy. What's going on?
I'm waiting my turn. I have a book idea, and I'm going to actually show you a finished page from it.
Can we steal it, Mike?
What?
Can we steal it?
No. I was at a school in Martinsburg.
Oh, heck.
I was in a school in Martinsburg, West Virginia, and the kids were leaving, and a kid came up to me and said, "Hey, author, look, you need to write an alphabet book about pulling teeth." And so this book, I wrote a book, an alphabet book on 26 ways not to pull your teeth. And of course, the last page would be an explanation on how to do it. So I sent it in, and the editor, my editor at the time that was doing my books, loved it, but took it to committee, and it was like, what? So they turned it down. 6 months later, she contacts me. She goes, "Send that back to me. I'm going in there, and I'm going to fight for that book." Well, you all know Kathleen Kroll?
Yeah.
Yes.
Her husband, Paul Brewer, is an illustrator. So I explained the concept to him that this is a farce. This is how you don't pull your teeth. So he got it. And so I want to share with you the B page of my book. Okay? Can you see it?
This is how.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Bobby went to the bowling alley with his brother Benny. He hoped he'd get out one loose tooth, but he knocked out way too many.
Nice.
Mike, this is a great idea. I'm gonna have this on my editor's desk by Monday.
Yeah, how do you
That's great.
screen capture again? Screen capture, let's see. Okay.
Mike,
Hey,
that's great.
leave it alone.
That is hilarious.
So
Hey,
anyway,
Mike, do you tie a tooth to the space shuttle? Have you done that yet? Tie the tooth to the space shuttle?
if that is the R page, and here's what I did is 26 kids in the class, half girls, half boys. Starts with A. I actually researched the most common names of kids so that I could use their the most names that would shotgun in a school, you know, to get the most names. But
Was
here's the
Sneed one
genius
of the names?
Paul.
Was Sneed one of the names?
No,
Oh,
no.
Okay.
But listen,
Oh,
listen.
man.
Here's the payoff at the end. Paul said that if he got to do the book, the last page, last double page spread would be a class picture of all the kids, and Bobby would have a 7-10 split.
Ah, nice, nice.
That's great. That's a great idea.
It's not
So
published.
That is-
And it's not, is it being submitted now, Mike, or no?
What?
Is it, do you have it in submission now?
I do not. I do not. It's one of those things you get so disgusted with, you know, the getting it out there, getting it out. No, it's not anywhere yet. But
Well, I think it's really
I
fun.
do. Listen, I'm going to find a video, and if we have time at the end, I want you to see the most ingenious way a kid pulled his teeth. But I'm going to get it ready, and we'll go on to someone else. And if we have time, come back to me to see it.
So Mike Artell, right? What's your book?
Well, the one that I really was excited about, and it never really, I've never been able to find a publisher for it. Well, it started out as an Air Force One book. I wanted to do a book about Air Force One, the president's plane.
Cool.
Excuse me. And so I talked to the people at Andrews Air Force Base, where they keep Air Force Ones, and talked to some of the people there, got a lot of information, could not find a publisher. So I said, well, let me expand it a little bit. So I did the research on every single Air Force One that was ever done, okay, and where they are. And there's lots of photographs about them and layouts and things like that, and histories, you know, like the plane that brought President Kennedy's body back from Dallas when he was assassinated. And it was just fascinating, you know, I thought, all the different Air Force Ones.
Well, have you been to the Ronald Reagan Museum?
I have not. I have
The
not.
Ronald Reagan,
No.
the Ronald Reagan Museum, Air Force One is inside the museum.
Yeah, I know. I knew that, but I had not been. So, but anyway, it's kind of a disappointment for me because I think kids and teachers, you can have the kids chime in. You know, would you like to see an Air Force One, all the Air Force Ones, and you know, some more old prop planes and all that. So anyway,
How they've changed over time. That could be very cool.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea, Mike. You don't give up on that. I mean, same with you, Mike Shoulders. I mean, but 90% of this career is persistence. Would you all agree with that?
I'm so excited. I've got 2 great book ideas already this morning.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike Artell.
Thanks, guys. I gotta go.
Yeah.
I gotta go. Bye.
Mike Artell.
I'm done. Yes.
Go to a Barnes and Noble and find out who publishes airplane books. Airline.
It's not a matter of, you know, it's not a matter of finding them. It's just, I just can't sell them on it. You know, they're just not interested for some reason. I don't know. I know right now the picture book market's very tight right now. You know, there's a graphic novels are huge. But
someone told me this the other day. I don't know if it's true, that in the year 2000, 2,000 children's books were published. In that last year, 32,000 children's books were published. If that's true, I don't know if that's true.
Probably they're all. I think a lot of them are probably self-published. Self-publishing is huge right now.
Yeah.
Well,
You know, it's interesting.
Go ahead, Mike.
Getting back to that pulled tooth, here's one publisher that one editor absolutely loved it and actually took it to committee twice. And then the other people said, nah, you know, because they thought that's a weird book. And so it's a farce. It's to put kids at ease, you know, because kids are losing their teeth and they're scared. And it's
Right.
a fun
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
And so we just added that little tag at the bottom, would you pull your tooth like that? No.
Yeah.
But
By the way,
the
for
same-
kids who are watching right now, Mike Shoulders just mentioned, when you publish a book, when you write an illustrated book, you send it to an editor, but that editor has to take your book to a meeting with other editors. And, a publishing company gets thousands of submissions every year, and they probably only publish a few dozen books. So they have to pick very carefully. And even great books, that are written beautifully and illustrated wonderfully don't get published because publishers can only publish a few dozen. So you have to understand that it isn't just writing the book. You have to get an editor who can help take the book like a shepherd through the whole process for you.
My
And to sell
dentist,
the book. This is a business, so they have to be able to sell the book and publish it and market it.
Yeah.
but my dentist told me that when they go out to schools in National Dental Month, that there are not a lot of teeth books out there.
I'm
the
sure.
Berenstein Bears, and that's
Yeah,
it. So
yeah.
he was excited
Yeah.
about the concept. But
By the way,
Maybe-
guys, I will admit this. I went to the dental convention. and I had a
Did
booth-
you?
I had a booth, and it was as good as being at IRA. I'm not kidding.
Wow.
So the
Kidding.
kind of book-
What? Were you there? Was it just an experiment, Jerry, or did you have a book that?
Well, what
particularly
happened
appeals
is
to-
I was just lucky. They wanted some local Boston color at the convention when it was in the Boston Convention Center.
Okay.
And they said, "You're a
Okay.
Boston author. Do you want to come have a table?" And I go, "Yeah." It
You
was
didn't
really great.
say, you didn't
Hey,
say,
Mike,
"Can
I
chew
wish
on
I
that
had
for
your
a
book.
while?"
What?
You didn't say, "Can I chew on that for a while?"
Oh no. He told the
Hey.
truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, right?
Guys, see this book right here? I want to
Yeah.
see if you can beat this. You ready? This book came out 25 years after I wrote it. 25
Wow.
years.
A
I think
giraffe.
I'll beat that.
Wow.
So there you go.
Wow.
Can you beat that?
Wow.
Yeah.
25 years?
do you want to see Jimmy pull a tooth?
This is 15 years
Yeah.
right after 9/11. It came out in 2016 with Scholastic called Safe
That's a
in the
long way.
Store.
Yeah.
That's a
15
beautiful
years.
book. Yep. Beautiful book.
Guys, I have a book that was published in 1990, early 1990s, 1991, 92, that's still in print.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
yeah. So,
But going
You
to
know,
the
Very good.
question too, I have dozens of manuscripts that I have not sold, and that,
right.
raise your hand if you're in that situation too.
I
Jerry's
guess.
the only one who's sold every manuscript that he's written.
Everything he writes is pure gold.
No,
So
I'll tell you. I'll
Okay.
tell you 2 books I wrote that I couldn't sell. I wrote a book called The Perfect Soccer Team, and the goalie was an octopus. I'll just leave it at that.
What
And then
about
I
your
wrote a-
hair care? What about your hair
What?
care book, Jerry?
I wrote a book called Michelangelo Fractions. You know when the Da Vinci
Oh.
Code came out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let this pass. So I wrote Michelangelo Fractions, but
Oh,
nobody
wow.
wanted it. No, it
Love
didn't go.
Michelangelo. I have his notebooks, a copy. They
Yeah.
printed his notebooks, and just he was unbelievable. Da Vinci.
Yeah.
I
Um,
wrote a book called Mites in My Mustache that never sold. And I thought it was
Is
a
that true?
surefire.
Is that
Could have
true?
been worse. Could have been worse.
You know where those mice like to go.
And then those two
Hey.
gals published that awful cockroach family book in New York. And I thought, hey, if that
Oh.
can sell, why not Mites in My Mustache?
Sneed, you blew it.
Yeah.
All you had to do was say mites in my eyelashes, and it might have sold.
Yeah.
Was that the
right.
difference? You're probably
Hey, look, Carmen sold her cockroach book, right?
That's right.
There's a market out there for it.
Well,
That's
getting
right.
back to poop, I wrote poop poems.
Wait, were we at poop?
Were we in poop?
Well, we always get back to poop. I wrote poop poems, but I just couldn't
Poop
sell it.
poem.
And I used to recite them at schools, and the kids and the teachers loved them. And editors said, I no doubt that you would sell a lot of these at schools, but we get so many complaints from parents. And since that time, I've seen so many Walter the Farting Dog, everybody.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Steve, did you write it on single ply or double ply paper?
Hey, Steve, can you give us a little tune on that poop?
Yeah.
on the poop poem?
Yeah. Yeah. You got a little poop song for us?
Yeah, I do actually. This is called Everybody Goes Sometimes.
I'll be right back.
Gotta
I'll be
go
right back.
sometime.
Hey, wait,
That's the
Steve,
way
Steve.
it always goes. You can do it with a grumpy look. You can do it with a grin. Cha cha cha.
Yeah.
I know that song.
Everybody gotta go sometimes. You can do
I've,
it with a
I've
grumpy
listened
look.
to that
You
100 times
Right.
with my grandkids. Show
But
the
not
disc,
without your phone. You can't go without
Show
your
the
phone.
disc.
That's for sure.
Steve.
Yeah.
Show the cover, show the disc.
Oh, so I couldn't sell the poetry book, but I made a poetry CD called.
Where's he gone?
He's building tension. What is it? Hold it up. Poopalele.
And on the
Wow.
got Everybody's Got to Go Sometime, the poop song. I Can't Go. Things to Do with Poop. I Gotta Go. Ode to Fragrance to Poop. And they're still
Wow.
available. I got a few left.
You know, that's the thing about this group. We keep
You
the
know,
bar
I think of-
high. We keep the bar
I think
high.
of like,
Yeah.
when I think of music, I think of Pet Sounds, Sergeant
Yeah.
Pepper,
Yeah.
you know, and then I think
Not
of
me. I think
Poopalele.
Poopalele. I think Poopalele myself. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
If your guys are nice, I could send you one of these. Okay, if you do you still have CD players?
Oh yeah, I have my copy,
Um,
Steve.
yeah.
I treasure it.
Yeah. It's right next to my 8-track. Yeah.
All right, here we go. Ready, guys? We're almost out of time. So let's see. Mike Shoulders has been quiet today. Mikey, do you think of anything special we could discuss as a closing thing for our show today?
No. Can I take about 20 seconds to show you this video?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go.
Sure. Why not? Yep.
Sure.
So here's
Go.
the video. This is the R page. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
We can.
So
It's
it's a
already
rocket.
funny.
Dental floss.
Nice.
Watch. Here's the payoff, and here it comes.
No way.
This is too good. This is too good. Kids, don't do this.
Oh,
No.
man.
So I'll let you watch the rest of it. But that's my R page. It's Ryan pulls his tooth with a rocket.
Oh, nice, Mike.
That's really
Yeah.
great.
That's
That's
my
really
research.
No, Mike.
I
That's
like
good.
that. That's really funny. All right, everybody. I think we had a great day. Thank
Yep.
you, Sneed, for coming all the way from Missouri. And thank you, Mike Shoulders from Tennessee, and Mike
And
Artell,
wherever I'm from here today.
Covington, Louisiana. Aren't you from Covington,
Take your
Louisiana?
screen
Yeah,
off.
yes, I am. Yes, I am. No, there's nothing
Swinburne
to see
from-
really. It's just a wall.
Lee Swinburne from Vermont.
Thanks,
and
Jerry.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Jerry.
Pallotta.
Nice seeing you. Are we doing this?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Mary Alice and Jamie too. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Alice. Thanks, Jerry. Bye, Sneed.
Bye.
Mike.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
guys.
Thanks for coming
Bye,
on. That
y'all.
was